Coming up on Tech News Today, Periscope is empowering the community to police its stream. Also, your Myspace account might be forgotten by you, but it's known by many potentially with the latest hack. Google's Assistant will have a backstory and some sass. Atari is capitalizing on its name once again, this time in the Internet of Things. And whoever thought that tapping a dinosaur would be so much fun? All that and more coming up next on Tech News Today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today, episode 1524, recorded Tuesday, May 31st, 2016.
This episode of Tech News Today is brought to you by Tracker, a coin-sized tracking device that pairs with your smartphone and keeps you from losing your most valued possessions. Visit thetracker.com right now to take advantage of their Father's Day limited time sale through June 13th only and enter promo code TNT for a free color upgrade. Hello and welcome to Tech News Today, the show where we talk about all the latest technology news with people who are passionate about technology. I am Megan Morrone.
And I'm Jason Howell. How are you, Megan?
I'm doing great. I had a nice long weekend.
You saw X-Men?
I saw X-Men. And yeah, it was great. I mean, we sometimes ignore Memorial Day. I want to thank everyone for their service. Thought about my grandfather who was in World War II. Talked a lot about all the sacrifices that all of the people in the service have made. And it was nice. And we saw X-Men.
For sure. We did not see X-Men, unfortunately. We saw a whole lot of campfires and s'mores and camping. You know who else was camping this weekend?
Who?
Oh, I know that you know, because we were just talking about it before the show. We'll let you all in. How about that? Becky Worley is back at the show. How's it going, Becky?
This girl went camping.
Yeah.
I was doing a segment on GMA on Friday morning about Memorial Day sales, also thinking about the fact that, we're here to honor our veterans, and at the same time, we're thinking about, all the discounts. But at the end of the segment, I said, hey, all these deals are available online. Go get them now and then go camping. That's what I'm doing.
Yep.
And somebody tweeted to me, you camp? Yes, I camp. I camp. I'm a camper.
See, I went camping, but it's a campground with Wi-Fi, and that's when you know you're not actually camping. Like, there was literally Wi-Fi blanketing the place. Like, what have we come
Did
to?
you smell like smoke when you came home eventually?
I like the way you think, Becky. Yes, I did.
Camping. Wi-Fi or no camping. If you smelled bad, you can't.
I slept in a tent. We had a campfire, and there was internet everywhere. Totally camping.
That's awesome. All right, well, let's get started on the tech news. I am not afraid to say that I believe widespread personal live streaming from smartphones with services like Facebook and Periscope is the first sign of the apocalypse. Yes, there are joyful success stories like that of Candace Payne live streaming her unboxing of that Chewbacca mask. Who could forget? But more often than not, we hear about people live streaming some pretty awful acts, and it makes you wonder if these people might not have committed these acts if they weren't live streaming them. What can you do about that? People are horrible. But maybe if people watching and commenting weren't so horrible, people wouldn't be less likely to be horrible on the live stream? I don't know. Today, Twitter-owned Periscope announced real-time comment moderating. They call it lightweight, but I find it rather complicated having tried to use it today. It's better than nothing, though. As a viewer of a live stream, you can now report an offensive comment, and then a randomly chosen group of other people watching the stream can vote on whether or not they think that comment is offensive. So I don't know if it's not working yet or if my app hasn't updated yet. I tried to use it, and it's surprisingly easy to find an offensive comment on Periscope.
Is it?
Here's a tip. Click on one of the streams of a younger woman, and that's where you will find most of the offensive comments. But I couldn't figure out, and so I'm assuming that it's not working yet, because I tried to tap it, and it just said block. It didn't give, it's supposed to say abuse, spam, or other reason. I don't know. What do you, Becky, what do you think about this live moderating?
Well, I do think whenever you're live streaming, you're putting yourself out there in a big way. And so it's a barrier to entry to think that people are going to abuse you in the comments. And so these companies have a vested stake in making commenting much more civil. Now, as it stands right now, Periscope will let someone ban a commenter, or they can choose proactively to only let people comment if they're people that the broadcaster already follows, so known entities. But I don't think those tools are very commonly used. So the idea of crowdsourcing the appropriateness of comments, it sounds in the way that they're actually talking about the manifestation to be a little bit laborious. So if, let's say there's 10 viewers on the live stream, someone makes a comment that's marked as abusive, then some of those other viewers are then tapped to vote on whether they think that comment is abusive. If they all vote that it is abusive, then that's put out to the entire audience whether they think it's abusive, and then it's voted on again. And then Periscope says from this point, it should only take a minute or so for all of that to happen. That sounds like a lot of stuff happening for what is a relatively vapid service. It seems involved to me, don't you guys think?
Yeah. I mean, I had not spent a lot of time consuming Periscope live streams, but I did that today, and I was amazed by how many people are live streaming themselves smoking pot or texting while driving or just
I'm sure there's a lot of that.
Yeah, it's crazy. Or just like hanging out in their living room talking about stuff. But I get where they're coming from, because there was some comments that I was like, wow, that sounds really abusive. But I also felt like I was in a world that I don't really belong. Like a lot of, I don't understand this, a lot of the communities that I entered in, and maybe that's just how they treat each other. So maybe
Megan, I mean, to start with, the offenses you just listed were so innocuous compared to the chat roulette days. I mean, I haven't seen that much sausage since Oktoberfest. So the fact of the matter that you didn't see that tells me things are getting better out there. So let's put that in.
Okay, good.
As parents, I think actually one thing that all three of us will agree is, because we all have multiple kids, you have to let your kids work it out for themselves unless you really think one child is terrorizing another. And so I think that there's a sense that not only is this, a much more lucrative business model to let the users actually police themselves, but I think Periscope made a good point that you don't really know if something's offensive unless you're actually watching the entire broadcast and you know the context of what's happening. And so there is a point to be made that those who can best police content are those who are most familiar with it. And those are the people who are in it and in the moment.
Yeah, in the moment, context is a huge aspect here. Also from the sense that not all live streams are the same, right? So something in one live stream might actually be offensive, let's say, but in another live stream might actually, be appropriate for the content that you're watching. So they're not, just cleaning it all with the same kind of, broom, whatever you want to say there. I also think that broadcasters are given the chance to kind of focus on the content itself and not be part of this policing. I actually really think this is an interesting concept. And if it's early days and it has some issues right off the top because it's new, like I'd be willing to forgive that and kind of see how it pans out, because we all know Twitter needs help in this regard too. And this is a Twitter-owned property. I don't know how this formula could be applied to something like Twitter, but I don't know. I actually think it's a pretty great move to take the community that's super connected to this stuff and kind of put them to work a little bit. If they're really engaged with the content, they're going to be okay with that. I mean, it's a part of what we do here at Twit, actually. The chat room is totally community moderated. It's moderated by, we don't control or operate that ourselves. That's done by fans of the network. And this is pretty effective. So.
But it's not done on a community
It's
basis.
not. There's
a group of people that have been chosen, not randomly chosen.
Right.
As
they've figured that out, though, right?
Yeah.
The community that is in the chat room has figured out to that point, and we aren't involved. We are left to create content. I guess that's my point, and that's great to not have to be kind of pulled into that, because that pulls you out of other things, I suppose.
The one element of this that I see as a sort of a barrier here to making this as effective as you're talking about, Jason, is that the consequence in the Periscope model is very limited. The only consequence is that, let's say you have someone who's trolling a live broadcast, is that if the group decides that that person is making abusive comments, that their ability to chat or to comment is disabled for the remainder of the broadcast. So anyone who's a serial troll is just going to click onto the next one, and it's hard to see from what they published so far how that will help stop that on a more global or systemic level.
They hit 100, 100 reactions from however many streams. We've decided to disable your account for 3 days.
100 troll points. Who wins?
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, in some sense, it's the same as what's going on on Twitter versus Facebook. Like, there weren't a bunch of horrible people criticizing Candace Payne because you're more accountable on Facebook. You are, you mostly have to use your real name, and you're connected with your grandmother and your aunt and your kids, and you're going to be, as we talked about this, there are still horrible people saying horrible things on Facebook, but there are fewer of them. So
I'm so torn on the issue of trolls because I think coming up, or, maybe it's not trolls, that's an overgeneralization, but people making negative comments. Someone who, has, as both of you do, has been in the public eye in putting themselves out there, whether it's in print or video or on TV or whatever, you're going to get a lot of feedback. Yeah. And you sort of learn to approach it the same way that you do when you're deciding if you're going to buy a product on Amazon. Like, ignore all the 5 stars, ignore all the 1 stars, just read the 2 through 4s. So if someone starts out hating, then you just like, okay, whatever. But you can actually learn a lot from the middle folks. And so at the same time, I really don't want if my kids decided they wanted to put themselves out there, it would just be so hard to see them have to go through that same process. And I don't know. I eventually came to terms with it when I had a Yahoo article up with like 1,200 comments, which was pretty normal back when we were doing the big Yahoo pieces. And right back to back were two comments that really it summed up for me how hard it is to take comments seriously. And that's the moment where I was like, I'm never going to worry about comments again, which was the first person said, damn, this chick's hot. And the second person said, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, okay.
I don't know what to do with this one.
Clearly, between the two of you, the truth lies, but neither extreme is worth me even paying attention to.
Fair enough. All right, moving on from that into 10-core computing. We've officially entered the era of 10-core computing, folks, with Intel's announcement of its Broadwell-E gaming chips for, gaming. 4 new chips in the family were announced, including the Behemoth. The 6950X has 3 gigahertz, 10 cores, and 25 megs of onboard cache. A price for the chip, it's no slouch. It's $1,723, only $700 higher than Intel's previously premium chips that came in around $999, right around there. Intel says the chip is designed for what they call mega tasking, meaning you don't just throw a simple game or a simple application at it. Instead, you throw everything you have. We're talking processing 4K games at 60 frames per second while also encoding the gameplay, while also streaming that gameplay to a 1080p live stream all at once. No big deal. So
everybody's doing that, Jason.
Everybody's doing it who has $1,700 burning a hole in their pocket.
Everybody needs that many cores, please.
We all, and you know what? It's only gonna be like two years before we've got this in our phones. Greg, who runs our teleprompter, he threw his hat down, I think, in disgust. I'm not quite sure. It might just be jealousy because he wants one.
Yeah, he was super excited, and then you said $1,700. Oh,
I see.
And then he cried
sorry, Greg.
a little.
Greg, I am a seasoned consumer reporter, and I'd like to let you know that others have crunched the math, and the 10-core is $634 more than the 8-core, meaning you only get a 58% increase in cores. Sorry, it's a 58% increase in price for only a 25% increase in cores. Mm-hmm. That's not a good core to price ratio, Greg.
Now he's saying it's a ripoff.
Okay.
So maybe we've talked him off the edge there. All right. Well, I'm curious to know what Sam has to say about this on Friday because he's probably the one that's going to put this to its limits. He's the hardcore gamer. But this sounds impressive. Like I say, I can't wait for this to hit my phone in a couple of years.
Do you guys get the thing where people who know that you're a tech reporter, like the really hardcore, especially the hardcore gamers, will stop you and ask you questions about things like this because you're a tech reporter?
Yes.
And you're sort of like, because they know so much more than you do about this. And it's funny to me, though, I was thinking about it. Those questions have gone down in frequency so much over the last few years. And it made me wonder if there was a corollary to overall PC sales. I would assume that PC sales are just absolutely tanked, and tablets and handheld devices have usurped them. I was actually surprised that they haven't tanked more. In 2011, 365 million global PC shipments. 2015, only down to 288 million. I would have really thought that PC sales would have slumped much, much more. I mean, obviously, I think hardcore gaming sales, I don't know. It just doesn't feel like it's as much a part of the discussion from the tech media community, and that this stuff has all just become so commoditized and so like TikTok, here's what's coming next, that there's not a lot to talk about.
It's true. I think for the longest time it was all about like the mobile, the smartphone, the tablet. Tablet's a prime example of that, of the next kind of coming of computing and everything like that. But I don't know. Yeah, I think what you're saying is exactly true. It's kind of like we've been distracted for the last little whiles as far as like what the next mode of computing actually is. But it turns out we kind of already have it, and we're still kind of locked into it, whether we want to be or not. And I think that's just kind of the state.
Mm-hmm. But there's no denying that, like, if we're going to be doing virtual reality or gaming and streaming and encoding at the same time, we're going to need better chips.
Yeah, I think virtual reality has definitely brought this a little bit more into that is interesting, because people are thinking, well, I'm going to have to upgrade if I want to make my ultimate gaming machine into an ultimate Vigrum.
Exactly.
If they are actually thinking they need to get into VR, which a lot of people are wondering about that specifically.
Well, moving on, former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder has said that Edward Snowden performed a public service by leaking classified documents in 2013. Holder's comments were made on the CNN podcast The Axe Files, hosted by political analyst David Axelrod. He sparked a necessary debate. That's what Holder said. Let's take a listen to that podcast.
He performed a public service by raising the debate that we engaged in and by the changes that we made. Now, I would say that doing what he did, and the way he did it, was inappropriate and illegal. Maybe could have gone to Congress and done these kinds of things. But I think
he would argue that he tried various ways and couldn't. But what should be done with him now?
Well, I think that he's got to make a decision. He's broken the law in my view. He needs to get lawyers, come on back and decide see what he wants to do. Go to trial, try to cut a deal. I think there has to be a consequence for what he has done. But I think in deciding what an appropriate sentence should be, I think a judge could take into account the usefulness of having had that national debate.
But you think he will still serve time?
Oh, I think he should. I think he harmed American interests.
So that was, of course, Eric Holder speaking first and David Axelrod following up. This is fascinating. And, of course, Edward Snowden tweeted about it. That's his microphone that he has now. And, his tweet was really interesting. He was basically, saying, first you said it was treason. Then you said maybe not. It was reckless. Then it was unlawful, but it's a public service. But so, yeah, this is fascinating. And the Justice Department says nothing's really changed. What do you guys think about this?
History will have an interesting take on the Snowden case, and this is sort of one of those points in the trajectory where you see the softening. Josh Earnest, who's the White House press secretary, he said on behalf of the office that they respect Eric Holder, and reminded people of what you just heard, that he said he has been charged with crimes, he should be afforded due process, but the bottom line is that the White House does not think Mr. Snowden has done the United States a favor. They are holding that line, and it makes you think that this is definitely from Eric Holder, not a sort of softening on the direction or on the behest of anyone to try and gauge public sentiment. It feels like he's definitely relaying his own opinion.
Right, now that he's out of office.
Right. Well, and that was going to be my point exactly. Is it's very interesting how once somebody moves on from being in office, how kind of the tune changes a little bit. Now he's still basically saying that Snowden should be his feet should be held to the fire on this, but it is interesting how it kind of comes full circle. It's like, yeah, well, actually, we did learn a lot of very interesting things, and we are changing policy to a great degree. What I don't understand is how, if you were in Snowden's shoes, considering the type of information that he's disseminated about all this, how do you do it without consequence? He says what Snowden did was not without consequence. It had all of these harmful effects, but I mean, just at its core, that information carries a lot of consequence, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it should then still be bottled up, does it? I mean, how do you do it without?
Well, I think the fundamental question was, did he exhaust all of his resources and avenues of whistleblowing in a way that didn't disclose current operations and techniques and methods that would fundamentally harm the U.S.? And that's such a point of contention, both whether or not he exhausted those avenues and whether he did or did not harm the U.S., I think.
Yeah, very open to interpretation, probably.
Yeah, there was a great article that I was reading in sort of trying to think about this, and it was the take from an attorney, a professor of law, civil rights advocate, a guy named Jeff Stone at the University of Chicago, and he was put on a task force commissioned by the White House to look at all of the types of NSA operations and what they were doing and under what auspices. And he went into it with the thought that I think many of us have and had, that the NSA was just freewheeling and they were just doing whatever they wanted to do to collect information. And he came away, once he had access to the classified material, with a totally changed perspective, that they had done all these things under the auspices of secret congressional committees, FISA courts, and with due process. And that his point was that while he doesn't think that Snowden did the right thing, he doesn't think that this is protecting of our civil liberties, but that things need to be changed at a much higher level than just saying the NSA has been the bad guy here, that we need to really rethink this from a government down perspective. And I think that's probably corroborating what Eric Holder said today, and that ultimately Snowden does have consequences to face because he subverted democracy in the process by which the government needed to change its policy, but it's hard to know whether he felt that was his only recourse.
Yeah, Holder also said that kind of the usefulness of the debate that all of this stuff has spawned should be taken into consideration by a judge who would reside over this case, and hopefully that would be applied to, let's say, the consequence in his regard, in Snowden's regard. So now we'll just wait and see if Snowden ever hops back here. I don't know if he has a whole lot of reason to at this point, to be honest, even though he wants to. Yes, we know it's been so long since you last logged into your MySpace account that you'd be hard-pressed to remember your password. Well, it's time to think about your MySpace account once more, if only to recall whether you use that same password on any other sites that you have accounts with, basically. A major cache of IDs and passwords was put up for sale online by Peace. That's the same hacker that posted 117 million LinkedIn credentials and 65 million Tumblr passwords for sale a few weeks back. Well, in this case, the credentials date back to the old MySpace platform before June 11th, 2013. And the hackers claim around 427 million passwords in the list. That would make this the biggest data breach to date, if true. Of course, Time Inc. is not, releasing any information as far as how many, the number of users accounts that were breached here. But they did say that affected users are being notified and their passwords are being invalidated automatically to help, kind of prevent any further damage from this. But this is old data, essentially, and data from a time when, and only a few short years ago, but our security practices now are actually much stronger than they were even a couple of years ago. So that's...
I feel like it comes down to not using the same password that you use in MySpace anymore.
Yeah,
and I feel like that's like eating junk food or like not exercising. It's like the thing. I know, but sometimes you're just in a hurry and you're just like, oh, it's such a good password. I'm just going to use it. I'm just going to eat that bag of Fritos. I know it's bad for me. I'm going to do it anyway. So
I love Fritos.
Don't.
Don't eat the Fritos.
Don't eat the Fritos. Don't use that password that you use for your MySpace.
I have a slightly different tack on this because number one, I have password hack fatigue on. It just seems like it's coming out
every other day. Yeah.
But one thing I would say is that I looked at the list of passwords from this MySpace hack. First off, the number one password, frequency 855,000 accounts had the password homeless PA. Now, that has not ever been in the list of most common passwords. Now, why does that exist as the number one password? It's because a bot created the accounts and used the same password for almost 1 million accounts. So, let's just start off with the fact that MySpace, not the most secure place as a starting point because they couldn't prevent bots from creating accounts. So that's my number one rant. Number two, if you look at the passwords here, you've got password 1, ABC, ABC123, ABC1234, password QWERTY. Guess what? Those are the exact same ones on the LinkedIn breach. They're also the same ones you would get if you downloaded any posted brute force attack best passwords to use in your brute force attack bot. So really what we're talking about, especially in this MySpace one, is it's not the passwords, it's the usernames that's valuable. So I would assume that either A, people aren't using those usernames because it was so long ago, or the email accounts that people often used for usernames are all defunct because they're like Hotmail and Yahoo and blah, blah, blah. So I'm hoping that makes this a completely defunct, don't even worry about it story and confirms my password hack fatigue syndrome, which I definitely think is a thing, and I think I've got it, and I might need to go lie down now.
Oh, I'm sorry, Becky.
You want some Fritos? Does that make you feel better?
Yeah.
Bag of Fritos, but don't eat them.
No, don't eat the Fritos.
Well, these were unsalted hashes. Same as LinkedIn. Not the same as Fritos.
Get it?
Not the same as Fritos. Fritos are very salted hash, as far as that's concerned. Yeah, definitely. Password manager. That's all you got to do. Password manager, and just redo all your passwords, which I'm still chipping away at because you got to do it from time to time.
But then you have to have one really great password
Yeah.
for it to get into your password manager, and you have to remember it.
Yeah.
And it can't be the same one you use for your MySpace account.
Right. Yes. But if you've got a phone with a fingerprint reader, it makes the whole thing a lot easier.
Good point.
Just saying.
Well, after the break, Google is trying to humanize its assistant, and we could see the end of the 16-gigabyte iPhone. But first, let's take a minute to thank Tracker, the sponsor of this episode. With advancements in technology, we have smart cars and smart phones and smart homes. Losing your possessions, though, can make you feel a little less than smart. Tracker makes losing things a thing of the past. I use my Tracker to help keep track of my keys and my phone, my kids' trumpet cases, sweatshirts, the dog, pretty much anything that goes missing a lot. You can pair Tracker to your iOS or your Android device, attach it to anything via key loop or adhesive, and find its precise location with the tap of a button. It's that easy. You can also customize two-way separation alerts to receive notifications before you leave your items behind. If you lose your phone, press the button on the Tracker and your phone rings even when it's on silent. How does this work, you might ask? Crowdsourcing. And there are more than 1.5 million Tracker devices out there. That's the largest crowd GPS network in the world, so your lost items show up on a map even if it's miles away. Tracker recently introduced Tracker Atlas, which works with your Tracker Bravo or third-party Bluetooth tracker to pinpoint your items on a customizable floor plan of your home. Save time and energy by asking Tracker Atlas where your item is, and you will instantly get an answer. No need to search. Tracker is enabled by Bluetooth Low Energy, so the battery lasts over a year. You can also purchase a water-resistant case, which makes it perfect for your pet's collar. Now, the hardest thing you'll ever have to find is their website. Go to thetracker.com and don't miss their Father's Day limited time sale. From now until June 13th, buy 2 devices and get 2 free. Plus, just for our audience, enter promo code TNT to get a free color upgrade. That's TheTracker.com. r.com, promo code TNT.
All right, everyone loves an origin story, right? It works for comic books and it works for movies. Then the logical conclusion is that it should totally work for digital assistants like Google Assistant. Its recently unveiled voice-activated AI. Ryan Germick is head of the Google Doodle team, and he'll be working with Pixar story artist Emma Coates to inject some humor and a story arc into the process. The goal is to make the assistant a relatable character, complete with backstory, narratives, and vulnerability, as in the robot actually needs us for things also. I don't know if I like this story. I'm a little scared, to be honest. I mean, scared, and not scared in like a this is creepy sort of way, but scared in the fact that I actually do rely on things like Google Now a lot for things now. And if it interjects too much other kind of fluffy stuff, like if there's story arc and it's going to need me for things, like am I going to be pinged by my assistant for certain things? Like, I'm sorry, that's going to kind of be a little annoying, I would imagine. What do you guys think about this?
It's a weird choice for Google because, I mean, they don't have it. They've never had a name. Like, it's not Siri, it's not Cortana, it's just Google Now or Assistant. So it's weird that they would be headed this way. But, I mean, as they become more part of our lives, I guess it makes sense. What do you think, Becky?
So.
Well, even extras in a movie create their own backstory to improve their performance. So no matter how small this assistant's place in your life, Jason, we need to have context and voice. That being said, I think this might just be fart humor, because listen to this. What they used as an example was this was at, I think, at Moogfest. They were talking about, Ryan Germick and Emma Coates were talking about this. They said, asking Google Assistant its favorite flavor of ice cream could yield an answer like, quote, "You can't go wrong with Neapolitan." Asking the machine, "Do you fart?" might lead it to say, "Not recently," or perhaps something more sassy. Maybe it could ping data about nearby air quality.
Okay.
So I guess, yeah, a consistent backstories we're talking about. So it's like for people that do like to ask the questions of their assistant and do want to, know more about it. You know, the Xiao Ice assistant, like, is well known for, like, the amount of people that told it that they loved it. Like, you know, people get very attached to their assistant. I think this is funny. Emma Coates, she was at Pixar. She's one of the people in charge of that. She was most famous for the viral 22 rules of storytelling that I guess they use in all Pixar movies, which is just fascinating. So I went through this, and there's one where it's like a fill in the blanks, and it says, this is how, if you're stuck in your story on number 4, once upon a time, there was a digital assistant. Every day, blank, it listened to everything you said. And one day it took all that information and took over your life. Because of that, you're now out on the streets. Because of that, the world is ending, until finally, I talk too much about how assistants are so creepy, and that's not my job. But still, I get it. This is...
Until finally you woke up from a bad dream. Oh, it was all just a dream. That's what I think,
right.
Actually.
I like this, but I'm also just, I think we all should appreciate what technology does, but also recognize that these devices are becoming more and more part of our lives. And
guys, this is nothing new. Here, let me tell you a quick story on this. My mom's a realtor. She sold a house that had one of those pool cleaners that went down and picked up all the leaves. And they forgot to mention in the disclosures that would be staying at the house. Well, when the person selling the house realized that they would be moving away and the pool cleaner would be staying in the pool, they asked to have it. The new owner said no. Gee, 2 days later, it was stolen out of the pool.
No way.
They had a name for it. They couldn't live without Pogo.
What if it was stolen, or if it left on its own?
That's it. It could have
Pogo.
gotten artificial intelligence and gone to find its owner. But I'm telling you, this was 25 years ago. People love their inanimate objects. It's a thing.
That's true.
That's true.
It's true. I guess I shouldn't be scared of this. I don't know. I just want it to be as useful as I hope it will be, and not be clouded up with unnecessary things. That's my point.
Well, Mike Murphy over at Quartz spotted a patent that sheds new light on the future of self-driving cars. Google's patent number 9,352,752 for engaging and disengaging for autonomous cars features appears to come in the form of a button, which might make taking over for a self-driving car or the other way around as easy as going in and out of cruise control. Now, Mike points out that for this patent, the car will check its surroundings before going into autonomous mode. Mind you, this is just a patent, and Google did not respond to Quartz's request for information about whether this feature will be used anytime soon, for example, in their new self-driving minivans.
I thought you were kidding about the 9,352,000 blah, blah, blah patents. But when I actually looked at the patent, that was the number. That's insanity.
No, I did not make that up. So, yeah, I mean, patents can tell us a lot or just lead us down a path.
That will maybe see some way.
Yeah.
Down the line.
But I guess the point is that this is a key feature. How in the transition are we going to go back and forth between taking over for the self-driving car, having the self-driving car take over for us? And, one of the things this patent says along the lines of the, digital assistant, the car could decide by itself that it's not safe to switch over to manual mode.
I love that. No, we actually don't think that you are capable of taking control right now. But that actually makes perfect sense, right? If it's a complicated scenario, a car right in front of the car you're in is changing lanes, that might not be the best point for your tapping on the accelerator to actually kick into place. So it makes perfect sense that it would be smart enough to make that determination along the way.
I can't wait for the self-driving car button. I cannot wait. I've made this comment before, but it just strikes me so much that when I took a test drive in one of the BMW self-driving cars at CES a few years ago, and when I came off the plane in Las Vegas and got in my own minivan to drive home, I was disappointed that I had to do it myself. I mean, it was that fast, the way that you just get acclimated to the idea and you're ready for it. I mean, the brain how much does cruise control freak you out? No. You're still kind of there. You got your foot so you can jump on the brake anytime. But it was amazing to me how fast my brain switched over and was comfortable with it.
Cruise control freaked me out the first time I used it. I remember using cruise control for the first time and hitting it and taking my foot off and just feeling like that loss of control, right? Like, sure, I could still steer, but no matter what, my car is going this fast in this forward direction until I interfere. That's a little freaky at first.
Yeah. I can't wait till self-driving cars either. A little personal story about the weekend. I got pulled over in the middle of the day driving on a country road out here. It was the middle of the day. I hadn't been drinking. I wasn't tired. But I got pulled over and I saw the lights. I was like, oh, what am I doing? And I wasn't speeding either. And he was just like, I saw you kind of going back and forth across the lane. You're a little bit in the shoulder. And I was just like, I'm a horrible driver. If you listen to my podcast, you would know that because I say that all the time. I was literally I was listening to podcasts. I was sort of he's like, yeah, you should stay out of the shoulder. I mean, there was no one in the shoulder, but I was like, or I just get a self-driving car. He was like, he didn't give me a ticket or anything. He was just like, I just thought, he thought I was falling asleep. And I was like, no, I just.
maybe he was falling asleep.
Bad at this.
He needed something to do.
Yeah.
Not biking in Petaluma anytime soon.
Yeah, not when you've got Morrone on the road.
Do you guys have in your cars the assistive driving features, like the one my car where you're coming up on a car that's stopped, it'll go beep 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 beep,
yeah.
And if you're looking down or changing the radio station, it kind of forces you to put your head up. That has been incredibly useful at times. And it's made me even more excited about self-driving car. And with you, Megan, it would be the lane assist, that
Yes.
keeps you in the lane. But what I'm wondering about is I get a lot of false positives where it's like I'm on a curve, but there's a parked car that's sort of in my direct trajectory, and it'll give me the beep, 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 beep. Well, the other thing that they're starting to layer into new cars is automatic braking. So even when it really senses that you're about to have an accident, it's going to automatically lay the brakes on. And I just am so curious how the false positives with the sensor technology are going to weigh in when the car is actually taking over in these instances. It might be more complicated than when the car is in self-driving mode anyways. To your point, Jason, about being vigilant when you're in the first few times you're in cruise control, you've pushed the button and that you've given the control over to the car. Whereas with some of these layered in invisible assistive technologies, that might be more disconcerting.
For sure. Well, what do you think about Atari? Is that disconcerting to you? That's my segue. If you've missed Atari in your life, get ready for Atari to surround you again. The classic video game company from a bygone era that I love is partnering with Sigfox to create a series of products from the world of Internet of Things, IoT. The partnership will result in a wide range of IoT devices, with Sigfox doing most of the creation and basically using Atari's name for brand recognition for the most part. This is what Atari has become these days. But Atari's focus with this will be on mass market appeal, they say, as well as charity. Tech, things like GPS tracking, status, temperature information, a panic button. Speaking of big buttons in the car, a panic button might be along for the ride. Kid trackers, collars for pets, sports and travel devices. Man, this show's full of really bad jokes. I'm sorry, everyone. What do you guys think? Is this Atari's next coming?
It's so sad. I didn't realize the sad, long downward spiral that the Atari name had taken. I went to the deep web, Wikipedia, and saw all the different iterations that it's had and how it was sold, and obviously founded by Nolan Bushnell and then sold in 84, 96, then again in 98, 2003. I mean, it's just incredible how many iterations it's had. I tried to figure out what Sigfox is. It looks like it's a company that has standardized wireless communications for Internet of Things networks more than actual devices. So it looks like this is their first foray, or one of their first forays, into the actual devices themselves. And how Atari's brand will actually further that effort, I don't know. It just makes me think of the brown box with the joystick. I don't know. It just doesn't feel like IoT, the future.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. It feels like I understand that Atari is a brand that is recognizable for a certain thing, and because it is Atari, it's recognizable. But it's just weird for Atari to be slapped onto something that has nothing to do with gaming. But I guess, hey, it's a brand name that it's got to be really difficult to let a name like that die because it has such a rich history. So I imagine anybody who owns it wants to make something out of it. It's just kind of out of nowhere with this one. Yeah,
last year there was an app. It was a fitness app that would help you. Like you could play old
Atari Fit, I believe it was.
Old games, and then the more exercise you did, the more games it would unlock. I guess.
It was AtariFit.com.
Yeah. So I don't know. I was thinking about this. I was thinking about like old technology I might want on new things. I was thinking remember the Texas Instruments graphing calculator?
Oh, yeah.
If I could get that as a wearable, as a watch, that would be. That's what I would like to have.
You can on eBay.
The same size, and attach a band to it.
Get the old one, yeah, sure.
Between that eBay purchase and some Velcro, I think we're on to a new fashion trend.
Okay, let's do it.
Bigger is better.
Now we have some rumors. The Chinese Apple analyst IHS Technology says the new iPhone 7 will start at 32 gigabytes. Not sure if this is accurate, but I've heard that would be getting rid of the 16 gigabyte, which is the one that's the bane of a lot of people's existence. It's the low end. It's been around for a long time as the base model. And I have heard that the 16 gigabyte phones are actually useful in the enterprise market. Businesses can cheaply buy their employees their own devices, so they're not putting a bunch of their own personal stuff on it, and they don't have their personal phones in the enterprise. 95 Mac says IHS Technology has been reasonably good. They have a good track record for predictions. So I don't know if this is true, but I think it would be nice to start at a 32 gigabyte model for people. I know a lot of people who they're like, oh, well, I just need a regular iPhone. So they get the 16 gigabyte, and it's like barely enough with the operating system, some photos, some apps.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't take much, especially if you're doing 4K video.
Yeah.
Anything along those lines, it fills up really, really fast.
I think as you increase, to your point, the spec on the phone, on the camera, you have to increase a lot of the storage. But I also think it's worth thinking about sort of the initial Steve Jobs philosophy when he came back to Apple, and it was all about minimizing SKUs. So fewer products, more clarity in the product line. You've got the 6S for the budget line. Don't try and play that game with another option in the 7. And it's sort of shocking. Like, oh, right, remember that guy? They might still be using some of his management theories. It seems like they've gone a long way away from that. But this might be one of the things that's a legacy idea that is just good business too.
Yeah. And I feel like, I mean, I don't have an iPhone myself, but I feel like if I hear a complaint about people who do buy an iPhone, let's say for the first time or whatever, it is because the 16 gig model is always so enticing, as any like entry level model is in a device category, because it's less expensive. You have that low storage space, and that's kind of what gets you in the door. But you very quickly realize, I probably should have paid just a little bit more because this is incredibly inconvenient. So that would be a good move for sure. Let's see here. Feedback to TNT@twit.tv. Tony Hannity's friend of All About Android, we've had him on a couple of times, writes in and says, on Friday, you two were chatting about being without your phone for an extended period of time. This reminded me about my experience of this a few weeks ago. I run 2 websites, work for a major software company and training, and it was my son's birthday party. We were out, and by the time we hit I-680, I was sans phone. But even with everything that I do on an hourly basis, I knew that the world would not stop for me, and I had to keep moving. Being without the phone was super liberating. I was unshackled from Instagram, no snaps to set up, no emails from colleagues to worry about. Sure, I missed out on taking photos and videos of the party on my own phone, but thanks to Google Photos, we have a collaborated album with other family and friends. And as for those missed emails and calls, the world didn't explode, and I still have my job. I guess my point is, every once in a while, it's a good idea to put down the tech. I fully agree. Maybe not when you're camping, though. Make sure you find a campsite that has Wi-Fi. This is really, really important, apparently.
I did notice you were responding to some YouTube comments. Like,
yes.
I was like, wow, you're camping, Jason.
I know.
That's how much he cares about you.
I believe that was probably Saturday night while I was sitting in front of the campfire because our youngest was asleep in the tent and I couldn't go anywhere. So I was like, all right, I'm allowed. I'm just here hanging out. I guess I could stare at the fire or I could reply to YouTube comments. Maybe I should have stared at the fire.
It's an age-old question,
I should have stared at the fire.
It is. Don't you feel, what is it? The Japanese have a term for when they go out in nature, forest bathing, I think they call it, where you sort of feel fresh after you've been out. Well, I think there should be a term for sort of non-digital time bathing.
Yes.
My brain feels different after I've read for 20 minutes and I've just sort of picked up the guitar and started playing again. And wow, it's like a massage for my brain afterwards compared to the level of whatever part of my brain that's being overworked by digital devices and all the seeking behavior that we do. So yeah, we need some digital detox, forest bathing, summertime thing happening.
We need to tighten that up a little bit to get a keyword out of it. That's good. It's a good start. I can't think of what would be appropriate with forest bathing as the...
I'm just going to make it into a Japanese word, and it's going to be Niko Umami Noto. I'm just made that up.
Perfect.
Niko Umami.
All right. Well, while you're figuring out how to spell that, TNT's fan of the day, this one's for you, Becky. John Barry said, "This is how I screenshot TNT. Love ya, Becky."
He's in my kitchen with me practically.
He is practically in your kitchen with you. Show us how you watch or listen to TNT, record a video, take a picture of yourself, your setup, or take a screenshot. We will take anything. Post it on Instagram, Google+, Twitter, or Facebook. Use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT, and we are going to find it.
That was a fantastic screenshot. Thank you for sending that in.
Thanks, John.
Next time your Android Chrome browser reminds you that it can't load the page you want because you're actually offline, have no fear. You might not have internet access, but you have your finger. And they've given you a dinosaur, so why not tap the dinosaur a few times, and then you'll be whisked away to a virtual wonderland of monochrome, running and jumping where cacti fly from right to left as you run faster, and you tap to jump them, or not, and you wreck. Regardless, it's keeping score. It's actually a lot of fun. I had no idea about this. I've encountered this before. I never thought to tap the dinosaur, and you get a little game out of it.
It's on iOS as well.
Oh, is it on iOS?
Yes.
Okay, so you tested it on iOS.
Yes,
Good.
I did. It
Good.
works. So yeah, if it does not work on the web. I tapped that dinosaur a bunch of times. Didn't work on the web, but on my iPhone it works. So next time, you can.
Well, you do it with your space bar on your laptop.
Oh.
So it does work on the Chrome?
Yeah, you just got it on your. I tried to double click it, but then that didn't work. So I hit my space bar, and then he started jumping full Mario style. So I got the dinosaur moving.
Yeah. Next time you have no internet access, instead of forest bathing,
no matter where you are,
instead of forest bathing, that's for chumps. Play with that dinosaur.
Umami moto. You do not need to hit the dinosaur.
I'm afraid to put Nico Umami Moto as our title because I don't know what it actually means.
It actually means savory cat.
Oh, okay. All right. Perfect. Title.
I don't know. Moto, I don't know, but I took Japanese in college. Nihongo dekimasu kara, Jason-san, that is a very okay title, okay?
Okay. As long as you're saying so, and we've got it on the record, Becky.
I don't know. I got to check your spelling because I don't know.
Yes.
Well, if you did, I mean, who knows?
All right.
Well, Becky, thanks as always. It has been a pleasure. And
It's been kind of a crazy
You
episode.
let us slide out of that holiday weekend right back into the tech news. We covered the tough stuff today.
Yeah, we did.
Thank you.
Yeah, right into it. Edward Snowden to all kinds of crazy
Mega
stuff.
tasking with your
forest
10
bathing.
core.
Yeah, total 10 core forest bathing. We're on that.
So you are, of course, at Becky Worley on Twitter. You're on Good Morning America. Is there anything else that you're working on that we need to know about?
Not at all. I did think of one thing that's always kind of interesting. You can put a call out on this show, and I love hearing from people. What do you guys do, viewers, listeners, to enjoy summer, and relax your mind, kind of like we were just talking about? Like, what is your thing that you do? Did you lay in the hammock? What do you do to make your brain and yourself realize this is summer, I'm chilling out? Just tweet that to me. I just love hearing from you guys, and sometimes I get really cool ideas, and that's what my brain is at right now. Like, I am so psyched to just chill out a little bit, do less. It's summer, guys. I'm definitely going to go have a Shave Ice or a Slurpee or a Mr. Softy and just enjoy the summer. It's starting now. I give all of you permission to do same.
I agree.
Thank you.
I feel like last weekend was the beginning.
That's right.
So let's enjoy it.
Time to wear the white shoes and celebrate.
I got to get some white shoes then, apparently.
It's appropriate.
Well, thank you, Becky. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Guys.
Thank you, Becky.
You got it. Bye-bye.
Always a pleasure. All right, tomorrow's guest will be this guy. His name is Ron Richards. Sometimes he's on All About Android. No big deal. Sometimes he's on this show, too, including tomorrow. He'll be here. TNT records live every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, 12 a.m. UTC at twit.tv/live. You can be part of the show by emailing us at tnt@twit.tv. You can leave us a short voicemail. That's 260-TNT-SHOW. And find us on Twitter. We're at Tech News Today TV.
You can subscribe to the show at twit.tv/TNT. And if you want to tweet at me, I am at Megan Morrone.
And I'm at Jason Howell on the Twitter. Thanks to our technical director, Kara Cole, and Greg, and all the folks who help us produce the show every single day. And thanks to you for talking tech with us today. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Bye, everyone.